Hyunwoo walked through the long corridors of Nexus Prime Station. His black diplomatic suit felt heavier today. Behind him, Yoonji and Taemin followed quietly. They all knew today would be different. The Galactic Council chamber was huge. Thousands of seats rose up like a mountain around the central speaking platform. Most seats were filled with strange creatures. Some looked like living crystals that sparkled in the light. Others were clouds of gas that floated in special containers. A few looked almost human, but with extra arms or different-colored skin. Hyunwoo had been Earth's ambassador for 10 years. He had seen many debates in this room. Today felt wrong, though. The air itself seemed angry. "The human question will now be discussed," announced the council's computer voice. The words echoed through the chamber. Premier Veltek stood up from his crystal throne. He was 12 feet tall and looked like a living diamond. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes. "Fellow council members, we face a serious problem. The humans have become too aggressive." Hyunwoo felt his jaw tighten. Eunji put a warning hand on his shoulder. She had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. She knew when trouble was coming. "The humans terraform dead worlds," Veltek continued. "They travel through dangerous space without permission. Their traders sell goods too cheaply. They are disrupting our ancient ways." The Nethros collective made a sound like steam escaping. Wispai spoke for all of them. "Humans are young, only 200 years in space. They do not understand proper order." Taemin leaned forward in his seat. He had spent 20 years building trade relationships with these species. Many of them were rich because of human technology and human trade routes. "We propose Resolution 847C, Veltek said. A holographic document appeared in the air above the chamber. "Humans will be limited to their current 57 colonies. No new terraforming projects. No expansion beyond their assigned sectors. All human military ships must be registered with Council security." The chamber erupted in discussion. Hundreds of different voices speaking in dozens of languages created a wall of sound. Most seemed to agree with the resolution. Hyunwoo stood up slowly. The chamber gradually became quiet. "May I speak?" he asked. "Of course," Veltek said. "Though I hope you will be reasonable." Hyunwoo walked to the center platform. He looked around the chamber at faces both familiar and strange. Many of these beings had been at his dinner parties. Their children played with human children on mixed colonies. Their scientists worked alongside human researchers. 200 years ago, humans took our first steps into space, Hyunwoo began. His voice was calm and clear. "We were excited to meet other intelligent life. We dreamed of friendship among the stars." Some council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "When pirates attacked the Velthari crystal farms on Kepler 442, who drove them away? When the plague struck the Yildar colonies, who shared their medical knowledge for free? When the trade routes to the outer rim became too dangerous, who volunteered to patrol them?" Hyunwoo's voice grew stronger. "Humans did these things. Not because we had to, because we wanted to help our friends." "You helped because you are young and foolish," Wispai interrupted. "You do not understand that help creates debt. Debt creates power. You seek to control us through your gifts, do we?" Hyunwoo asked. "In 200 years, has Earth ever asked for special treatment? Have we ever demanded payment for our help? Have we ever threatened anyone who refused to trade with us?" The chamber was completely silent now. "You call our terraforming aggressive," Hyunwoo continued. "We turn dead rocks into living worlds. We create homes for anyone who wants them. You call our trade disruptive. We sell good products at fair prices. We compete honestly." Veltek's crystal body began to glow brighter. "You do not understand your place, human. You are one species among thousands. Your ways are not the only ways." "You're right," Hyunwoo said. "Our ways are not the only ways, but they are our ways. And if our friendship is seen as aggression, if our help is seen as control, if our success is seen as a threat, then perhaps we have been making a mistake." Yoonji and Taemin exchanged glances. They had never heard their ambassador speak like this. "What mistake?" asked Council Member Zixara, a six-armed being from the Middle Rim. "The mistake of thinking we were welcome here," Hyunwoo replied. "The mistake of believing that different species could work together as equals. The mistake of assuming that friendship was stronger than fear." The council chamber exploded with angry voices. Some demanded that Hyunwoo apologize. Others called him arrogant. A few remained silent, thinking. Veltek raised one crystal arm for silence. "Are you threatening us, human?" "No," Hyunwoo said quietly. "I'm informing you. Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. All human colonies, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts are hereby terminated. The silence that followed was deafening. You cannot do this, HFY gasped. The Council provides order, structure, protection. Protection from what? Taemin called out from his seat. The pirates that we've been fighting? The raiders that we've been tracking? The economic problems that we've been solving? Hyunwoo walked back to his seat. He picked up his briefcase and stood with his team. This is temporary madness, Veltek said. You will return when you realize your mistake. Perhaps, Hyunwoo replied. But when we do, it will be as equals, not as children seeking approval from their elders. The three humans walked toward the chamber exit. Behind them, the council erupted in arguments and accusations. Some members demanded military action. Others called for economic sanctions. A few suggested that maybe they should have listened more carefully to what the humans were actually saying. At the chamber doors, Hyunwoo stopped and turned around one last time. For 2 centuries, we have contributed our technology, our resources, and our lives to this council. We asked only for the right to grow alongside our fellow sapients. If that is too much to ask, then goodbye. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. As their shuttle left Nexus Prime Station, Yoonji looked back at the massive structure. Do you think they understand what just happened? No, Hyunwoo replied. But they will. 3 hours later, the message reached Earth. The human exodus would begin immediately. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to live without humanity's quiet protection. Fleet Admiral Giho stood on the bridge of the battleship Harmony. Around him, dozens of screens showed the greatest movement of people and equipment in galactic history. Operation Homecoming had begun. Status report, Giho commanded. Sector 7 evacuation is 60% complete, reported Captain Hai Jin from her station. The colony ships from Haven Prime are loading the last of the terraforming equipment. Giho nodded. He had planned this operation for 3 years, hoping he would never need to use it. Every human colony had detailed evacuation plans. Every trade station had backup systems to transfer all data and materials. Every orbital platform could be dismantled in less than a month. The galaxy thought humans were impulsive and emotional. They were wrong. On Haven Prime, Governor So Young watched the massive cargo ships loading the atmospheric processors. These machines had turned a dead desert world into a garden paradise over 50 years. Now they were going home. How long until the atmosphere reverts? Asked Dr. Yu Jin, the colony's chief scientist. Without the processors? Maybe 10 years, So Young replied. The plant life will start dying in 2 years. The water cycle will break down after that. Yu Jin looked sad. We built something beautiful here. We can build something beautiful somewhere else, So Young said. Somewhere we're wanted. The evacuation was not just about people. Humans had built the galaxy's infrastructure in ways no one had realized. Chief Engineer Dong Hyun supervised the removal of hyperspace relay stations from 17 star systems. These stations made fast communication and travel possible across the galaxy. Sir, the Velthari are asking why we're taking the relay stations, his assistant reported. Tell them the stations belong to Earth Corporation, Dong Hyun replied. We built them. We maintained them. We're taking them home. Similar conversations happened across hundreds of worlds. Humans had built water purification systems, power generators, medical facilities, and transportation networks. They had created these things to help everyone, but legally, they still belonged to human companies. The aliens were starting to panic. On the Nethros homeworld of Mistar, Collective Voice HFY gathered with the Emergency Council. Their industrial complexes were shutting down one by one. The humans are taking their logistics programs, reported Sub-Voice Kessa Hai. Without their software, we cannot track our supply chains. We cannot manage our factories. We cannot coordinate between our worlds. Find alternatives, HFY ordered. We tried. Our programmers cannot understand the human systems. They are too complex, too advanced. HFY felt something new. Fear. Admiral Giho received similar reports from across the galaxy. The Velthari crystal farms were failing without human-designed nutrient solutions. The Zephyrian trade networks were collapsing without human financial management systems. The Outer Rim colonies were begging for human security forces to stay just a little longer. Admiral, we have a problem, reported Commander Jae-won from the intelligence desk. The Ravager clans are mobilizing. Our departure has left gaps in the security grid. Giho had expected this. The Ravager clans were nomadic raiders who had been kept in check by human patrol fleets for decades. With humans leaving, the raiders saw opportunity. What about the Council's own security forces? Giho asked. They don't have any, sir. Each species maintained their own small fleets, but they relied on human ships to coordinate joint operations. Without us, they can't work together. On his personal screen, Giho watched feeds from across the galaxy. Alien leaders were making emergency broadcasts. Some demanded that humans return immediately. Others offered new trade deals and political concessions. A few actually apologized for the events at the Council. None of it mattered. The decision was made. Captain Mincio commanded the evacuation of Research Station Alpha in the neutral zone. The station had been humanity's gift to galactic science, where researchers from dozens of species worked together on projects that benefited everyone. The alien researchers want to stay and continue the work, her communications officer reported. Without human funding and human equipment? Mincio asked. Tell them they're welcome to try, but we're taking our computers, our laboratories, and our data. Dr. Wu Jin, the station's chief researcher, felt conflicted as he supervised the packing of decades of research. We were so close to solving the Yildar genetic plague, he told Mincio. We can continue that work on Earth, she replied. The difference is now we'll help people who respect us. The economic impact was immediate and devastating. Human trade routes had connected remote worlds to galactic markets. Human banks had managed currency exchanges between dozens of different species. Human insurance companies had made interstellar commerce safe and profitable. All of that stopped in 6 months. Taemin, the former trade representative, now served as evacuation coordinator for economic assets. He worked 18-hour days managing the withdrawal of human businesses from thousands of worlds. Sir, the Centauri Commerce Guild is offering us triple rates to maintain their trade routes, his assistant informed him. Tell them we appreciate the offer, but we're not interested in business partnerships with people who consider us a threat, Taemin replied. The hardest part was leaving behind friends. Many aliens had worked closely with humans for decades. Some had married humans. Others had children in human schools. Governor So Young said goodbye to her Yildar counterpart, Governor Felnus, who had become a close friend over 10 years of cooperation. I don't understand, Felnus said, tears in her large eyes. I voted against the resolution. I argued for human rights in the council. I know, So Young replied sadly, and we appreciate that. But the majority of the galaxy has made their position clear. They see us as a problem to be managed, not friends to be valued. Where will you go? Home, to Earth, to new worlds that we'll build for ourselves. What about us? What about the worlds that still want human friendship? So Young considered this. Maybe someday we can be friends again. But it will have to be on equal terms. No more council supervision. No more restrictions. No more being treated like dangerous children. As the last human ships left each system, they left behind gifts, medical supplies for hospitals that would soon lose human doctors, food for worlds that had become dependent on human agriculture, technical manuals for equipment that would soon break down without human maintenance. The gifts came with a simple message. We never wanted to be your masters. We only wanted to be your friends. Admiral Giho stood in his command center as the final phase of the evacuation began. Hundreds of thousands of humans were returning to Earth or traveling to new colony sites in unexplored space. The largest migration in human history was nearly complete. Admiral, incoming transmission from Nexus Prime Station, his communications officer announced. On the main screen, Premier Velthek appeared. His crystal body was dim and flickering, a sign of extreme stress. Admiral Giho, please reconsider. The galaxy needs human expertise. We are willing to negotiate new terms. The time for negotiation was 6 months ago, Giho replied calmly. You made your choice. Now we're making ours. But the consequences are your responsibility, Giho interrupted. You wanted a galaxy without human interference. You're about to get it. The transmission ended. Within a week, the first Ravager clan attacks began. Within a month, 3 star systems had fallen to raiders. The galaxy's golden age was ending and the age of chaos was about to begin. Jinne sat in the quiet observation deck of Frontier Station, humanity's new listening post at the edge of their territory. Banks of monitors showed news feeds, emergency broadcasts, and distress signals from across the galaxy. What she saw made her feel sick. It had been 8 months since the human exodus began. The galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had predicted. Another system has gone dark, reported Lieutenant Hak Jin from the communications station. The Kepler 339 system stopped transmitting 6 hours ago. Pirates? Ginny asked. Most likely the Ravager clans. That's the 15th system this month. Ginny made notes in her daily report. Her job was to monitor the galactic situation and provide intelligence to Earth Command. Every day brought worse news. The economic collapse had started small. A few trade routes became unreliable. Some worlds experienced shortages of manufactured goods. Now entire sectors were cut off from galactic commerce. On her main screen, Jinae watched a news broadcast from the Velthari homeworld of Crystallis. The once proud crystal cities were dim and cracking. Premier Veltek looked like a shadow of his former self. Our crystal farms have failed, he announced to his people. Without the human nutrient solutions, we cannot maintain our food production. We are requesting emergency aid from any council member who can provide it. Jinae switched to another feed. The Yildar agricultural worlds were doing better, but only because they had maintained friendly relations with some human colonies. They were one of the few species still receiving human medical supplies and technical support. The security situation was much worse. Myung-soo, who had been an administrator on the former human colony of New Harmony, now worked as a refugee coordinator. He spent his days helping alien refugees who were fleeing the chaos in their home sectors. We have another group arriving from the Outer Rim, his assistant Wu Bin reported. 3,000 Kethron families. They say the Skrill have enslaved their homeworld. The Skrill were insectoid slavers from the galaxy's edge. For decades, human patrol fleets had kept them contained in their home sectors. Without that protection, they had begun expanding aggressively. Where can we put them? Myung-soo asked. Human refugee camps were already overcrowded with aliens seeking protection. Sector 12 has some space, but we're running low on supplies. Myung-soo felt frustrated. Humans were helping the same people who had voted to restrict human rights just months earlier. But it was the right thing to do. The technological breakdown was the most devastating problem. Dr. Haiwan worked with a team of engineers trying to help alien worlds maintain their infrastructure remotely. It was nearly impossible. The atmospheric processor on Gliese 667 is failing, she told her team. The colonists there have maybe 6 weeks of breathable air left. Can we send repair instructions? Asked Engineer Dong-soo. We tried. They don't have anyone qualified to make the repairs. The processors are too advanced for their current technology level. Hee-won looked at the list of failing systems across the galaxy. Water purification plants, power generators, environmental controls, communication networks. Humans had built or improved most of them over the past 2 centuries. It's like pulling a keystone from an arch, she explained to her team. Everything else falls down. The political situation was chaotic. The Galactic Council was fracturing as member species blamed each other for the crisis. Some demanded military action against the humans. Others wanted immediate negotiations to bring them back. War leader. Crexton of the militant Saurian Empire gave a speech that Jin-ae watched with growing concern. The humans think they can intimidate us with their withdrawal, he declared to a cheering crowd. They are wrong. We will show them the true meaning of power. We will take their colonies by force and make them serve the Council as they should have from the beginning. Ginny immediately sent a priority alert to Earth Command. The Saurians were preparing for war. Meanwhile, the refugee crisis was getting worse every day. Millions of beings were fleeing failing worlds and seeking safety in the galactic core systems. These worlds were not prepared for such an influx. Captain Sulgi commanded a human medical ship that was secretly providing aid to refugee camps. Her orders were to help but to avoid detection by Council forces. Doctor, we have 2,000 new refugees with radiation poisoning, she reported to Dr. Na Young, her chief medical officer. Their homeworld's nuclear power plants failed without human maintenance. We'll do what we can, Dr. Na Young replied, but we're running low on medical supplies. We weren't prepared for this scale of disaster. The most disturbing reports came from the Outer Rim, where entire civilizations were reverting to pre-spaceflight conditions. Without human technology and expertise, many worlds could not maintain their infrastructure. Intelligence analyst Young Min briefed Jin-ae on the latest situation reports. The Zephyrian trade networks have completely collapsed, he said. Their worlds are isolated and struggling to maintain basic services. The Nethros Collective has lost contact with 40% of their member worlds. The industrial complexes on Mistar are operating at less than 10% capacity. What about their own solutions? Jin'ei asked. They're trying, but they don't have the expertise. Humans weren't just providing services, we were providing knowledge that took centuries to develop. You can't replace that overnight. The situation was so bad that some alien leaders were beginning to understand what had really happened. They hadn't expelled a troublesome member species from the Council. They had expelled the species that made galactic civilization possible. Jin'ei watched a private communication between Premier Veltek and Wisp-High of the Nethros Collective. Her intelligence team had intercepted the transmission. We made a terrible mistake, Veltek admitted. The humans weren't trying to control us. They were trying to help us. It is too late for such realizations, Wisp-High replied. The damage is done. Our people are suffering because of our pride. Perhaps we could offer them an apology. Better terms. Equal status in a new council. They will not trust us again. Would you? The conversation continued, but Jin'ei had heard enough. Even the leaders who had opposed humanity were beginning to understand the truth. The galaxy's golden age of peace and prosperity had been built on human foundations. Trade routes, security networks, technological infrastructure, economic systems. Humans had provided all of it quietly and efficiently, asking for nothing but acceptance in return. Now it was gone, and the galaxy was learning what that really meant. Jin'ei compiled her monthly report for Earth Command. The statistics were devastating. Economic activity down 70% in most sectors, pirate and raider activity up 400%, communication networks failing in 60% of systems, medical emergencies increasing as human-trained doctors and human-supplied medicines became unavailable, food shortages on worlds that had relied on human agricultural technology, environmental disasters on terraformed worlds losing human maintenance. At the bottom of her report, she added a personal note. The galaxy is dying, and it's dying because they drove away the one species that was keeping it alive. 3 days later, she received new orders from Earth Command. War leader Crexton was assembling a massive fleet to attack human space. The time for quiet observation was ending. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had been holding back more than just their friendship. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Premier Veltek looked around the half-empty chamber. Many species could no longer afford to send representatives to Nexus Prime Station. Others had governments too unstable to maintain diplomatic relations. Order. We must have order, Veltek called out, his crystal body flickering with stress. War leader Crexton stood up from his seat. The massive Saurian wore full military armor and carried weapons despite Council protocol. We have wasted enough time talking. The humans must be forced to return. And how do you propose we do that? Asked Council member Elisa of the Centauri Republic. Her people were starving after their agricultural systems failed. With strength, Crexton replied. I have assembled the greatest fleet in galactic history. Ships from 12 member species. We will surround human space and demand their surrender. Veltek felt a chill run through his crystal form. That could lead to war. We are already at war, Crexton shouted. The humans declared war when they abandoned us. When they took their technology and left us to die. In human space, Admiral Giho received intelligence reports about the assembling enemy fleet. He stood in the command center of New Terra Station, humanity's new military headquarters. The facility was larger and more advanced than anything they had built while in the Council. Fleet size estimate? He asked Captain Hyojin. 2,000 ships, sir. Battleships, cruisers, carriers, and support vessels. It's the largest military force ever assembled. And our response? The 5th, 7th, and 9th fleets are moving to defensive positions. 400 ships total. The numbers looked bad for humanity, but Admiral Giho was not worried. The aliens had no idea what they were facing. Dr. Haiwan worked frantically in her laboratory, putting the finishing touches on Project SHIELD. During their years in the Council, humans had deliberately limited their military technology. They wanted to be seen as peaceful partners, not threats. That policy had ended with their withdrawal. Quantum field generators are online, she reported to Admiral Giho. The entire border zone is now protected by disruption fields. Effectiveness against Council technology? Giho asked. Their weapons and shields will be completely useless. Their sensors won't be able to detect our ships. Even their navigation systems will fail. Giho nodded. What about their communications? We can block any frequency they use. We can also intercept and decode all their transmissions. Meanwhile, the Council continued its desperate attempts to bring humanity back through negotiation. Ambassador Seung-jae, who had replaced Hyunwoo as Earth's representative, received dozens of messages daily. Some offered new trade deals. Others promised equal representation in a reformed council. A few even included personal apologies from alien leaders. Seung-jae ignored them all. The economic sanctions came first. The council froze all human assets in their territory and banned trade with human colonies. This backfired immediately when they discovered that most of their financial systems were managed by human companies. "Sir, we cannot access our own bank accounts," reported Council Financial Minister Tixhan. "The humans controlled 60% of our financial infrastructure." Premier Veltek felt his crystal form dim further. "Find alternatives." "There are no alternatives, sir. We built our entire economy around human expertise." The trade ban was equally disastrous. Alien worlds desperately needed human-manufactured goods, medicines, and technology. Black market trade began immediately, with prices increasing by 1,000% or more. Next came the diplomatic pressure. The Council sent special envoys to human colonies, hoping to negotiate directly with colonial governors. These envoys were politely but firmly told that all communication must go through Earth Command. When that failed, they tried more aggressive approaches. Council security forces attempted to blockade human trade ships. The blockades failed when the ships simply disappeared using technology the aliens had never seen before. "How are they doing that?" demanded War Leader Crexton during another emergency session. "We don't know," admitted Chief Science Advisor Korthek. "Our sensors show the ships entering the blockade zone, then they vanish. They reappear outside our perimeter minutes later." Impossible. Apparently not. The Council's final diplomatic attempt involved a direct personal appeal. Premier Velthek and Wispai traveled to the edge of human space in an unarmed ship, requesting a meeting with Admiral Giho. The meeting took place on a neutral station. Velthek and Wispai brought gifts and formal apologies. They offered everything they could think of: equal council membership, trade advantages, territorial concessions, even reparations for past discrimination. Admiral Giho listened politely, then gave his response. "Your apologies are noted and appreciated," he said calmly. "However, actions have consequences. You had 200 years to treat us as equals. You chose not to. The galaxy you wanted, one without human interference, is the galaxy you now have. But our people are dying," Velthek pleaded. "Yes, they are. Just as our people died protecting your trade routes while you complained about our aggressiveness. Just as our researchers worked for free on your medical problems while you accused us of seeking control." Wispai spoke for the Nethros Collective. "We were wrong. We admit this freely. What must we do to earn forgiveness?" "Survive," Giho replied. "Prove that you can build a better civilization without us. Maybe in a generation or two. When you have learned from your mistakes, we can discuss partnership again. Real partnership between equals." The meeting ended without agreement. War Leader Crexton was furious when he learned about the failed negotiations. "Enough games. We attack immediately." His fleet began moving toward human space 3 days later. 2,000 ships from 12 different species, representing the combined military might of most of the galaxy. They never reached their target. As the fleet approached the human border, strange things began happening. Navigation systems failed, showing impossible readings. Weapons targeting systems locked onto empty space. Communication between ships became garbled and unreliable. "What is happening to us?" demanded Crexton from his flagship. "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer replied. "All our systems are malfunctioning. Fix them." "We're trying, sir, but it's like our technology doesn't work here." Captain Seolmi commanded the human patrol ship that was monitoring the enemy fleet. Her ship was invisible to their sensors, protected by the quantum disruption field that Dr. Haiwan had developed. "They're completely blind," she reported to Admiral Giho. "Their own weapons are targeting each other because their computers are so confused." "Any sign they understand what's happening?" "No, sir. They think it's equipment failure." As the alien fleet struggled with their malfunctioning technology, human ships began appearing around them, not attacking, just watching. The alien crews could barely detect them on their failing sensors. War Leader Crexton realized he was surrounded by enemies he couldn't fight and couldn't even see clearly. "Retreat," he ordered. All ships retreat immediately. But many of his ships couldn't retreat. Their navigation systems were too damaged by the quantum field. They drifted helplessly in space, completely at the mercy of the human forces surrounding them. Admiral Giho opened a communication channel to the enemy flagship. War Leader Crexton, this is Admiral Giho of the Human Defense Force. You are trespassing in human space with hostile intent. Leave immediately or face the consequences. We cannot leave, Crexton replied desperately. Our ships are not responding. That is unfortunate. Perhaps you should have considered the risks before launching an unprovoked attack on a peaceful nation. You have done something to our ships. We have protected ourselves from your aggression. Your technology is simply not advanced enough to operate in our space. The truth was even worse than Crexton feared. While the Council had remained stagnant for centuries, relying on human innovation to solve their problems, humanity had continued developing. Their withdrawal from the Council had accelerated their technological advancement dramatically. The aliens were no longer dealing with the cooperative partners they remembered. They were dealing with a civilization that had surpassed them in every field: science, technology, military capability, and strategic thinking. What do you want? Crexton asked, defeated. Go home, Admiral Giho replied. Tell the Council that humanity has moved beyond their reach. Tell them that the age of human cooperation is over. From now on, they must earn our friendship instead of demanding our service. One by one, the alien ships that could still function limped away from human space. Many had to be towed by their fleet mates. The great invasion force that was supposed to intimidate humanity into submission had been neutralized without a single shot being fired. War Leader Crexton returned to the Council in disgrace. His report was brief and terrifying. The humans are no longer the species we knew. They have become something we cannot fight and cannot defeat. The galaxy's last hope of forcing humanity back into the Council had failed completely. 1 year after the human exodus, the galaxy looked completely different. Ambassador Seungjae stood on the observation deck of Humanity's station, looking out at the fleet of alien ships waiting for permission to enter human space. Each ship carried desperate leaders hoping to negotiate for aid, trade, or simply survival. The old Galactic Council was gone. Most of its member species had either collapsed entirely or broken apart into smaller, struggling nations. The grand civilization that had lasted for millennia had crumbled in less than 12 months. Next appointment? Seungjae asked his assistant, Min Jung. Governor Felness of the Yildar Agricultural Collective, she replied. She's requesting renewal of the medical aid agreement. Seungjae nodded. The Yildar were one of the few species that would be welcome here today. They had voted against the anti-human resolution and had maintained respectful relations throughout the exodus. The meeting room was comfortable, but clearly human-designed. Gone were the attempts to accommodate every possible alien physiology. Visitors adapted to human standards now, or they didn't visit at all. Governor Felness entered the room carefully. Her people looked like tall, slender elves with golden skin and large eyes. She had been one of humanity's strongest supporters in the old council. Ambassador Seungjae, she said with a respectful bow. Thank you for seeing me, Governor Felness. How are your people doing? Better than most, thanks to continued human medical support. The genetic plague that was killing our children has been almost eliminated. Seungjae smiled. I'm glad to hear that. Your request for renewal? Approved, I hope. We have maintained our end of all agreements. We have shared our agricultural knowledge freely and opened our worlds to human researchers. Yes, the renewal is approved. Your people have been good friends to us. Felness looked relieved. What about the others? The species that are still suffering? What about them? Many are willing to apologize now, to make amends for their past mistakes. Seungjae's expression became more serious. Apologies are easy when you're desperate. Where were these apologies when we needed them? On New Terra, the massive fortress world that humanity had built to protect their new territory, Colonial Administrator Do Yan watched the daily reports from across the galaxy. The statistics were grim, but not surprising. The Velthari had lost 80% of their population to starvation and system failures. Their beautiful crystal cities lay dark and empty. Premier Velthek now led a few thousand survivors living in refugee camps. The Nethros Collective had fragmented completely. Different groups of the gas beings could no longer communicate or coordinate without human networking technology. Many had simply dissipated into space. The Saurian Empire had collapsed into civil war after war leader Crexton's failed invasion. Different military factions fought over the remaining resources while their worlds fell into chaos. But not everyone was suffering. Some species had learned quickly from the crisis. Captain Jun-ho commanded the first human contact mission to the Kethron homeworld in over a year. His ship approached carefully, ready for anything. The Kethron had been a minor species in the Old Council, mostly ignored by the major powers. When the crisis began, they had done something smart. They had apologized immediately and offered to serve as neutral, intermediaries between humans and other species. Welcome to Kethron. Prime, came the transmission from their orbital station. We are honored by your visit. Jun-ho smiled. The Kethron had learned the right lessons from humanity's withdrawal. His meeting with Kethron leader Veltar was productive. The Kethron offered their worlds as neutral meeting grounds for human diplomacy. They had built new facilities using their own technology, not demanding that humans provide everything. We learned from watching your exodus, Veltar explained. We saw that the galaxy had become too dependent on human expertise. We decided to become self-sufficient. And how has that worked out? Difficult but rewarding. We have developed our own solutions to problems we once expected humans to solve. We are a stronger people now. This was the attitude that humanity respected. Not the desperate pleading of former enemies, but the quiet dignity of those who had learned to stand on their own. Back on Humanity Station, Ambassador Sung-jae faced a more difficult meeting. Premier Velthek had requested an audience. The former council leader arrived in a simple transport ship, nothing like the massive crystal vessels he had once traveled in. Velthek himself looked terrible. His crystal body was cracked and dim. He moved slowly like an old man carrying a heavy burden. Ambassador, he said quietly, thank you for agreeing to see me. Premier Velthek. I'm told you lead a refugee group now. Yes. 3,000 survivors, all that remains of the Velthari civilization. They sat in silence for a moment. Sung-jae remembered when Veldek had been one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, commanding fleets and ruling star systems. What do you want? Sung-jae asked. Food, medical supplies, transport to a world where my people can start over. And in return, nothing. We have nothing to offer. I come here as a beggar, asking for charity from those we wronged. Sung-jae studied the broken alien leader. Do you understand what happened? Do you really understand? Veltek's crystal form flickered. We thought you were trying to control us. We thought your help came with strings attached. We thought you were too young and aggressive to be trusted with real power. And now? Now I know we were fools. You never wanted to control us. You wanted to help us. You wanted to be our friends. And we threw that friendship away because we were too proud and too afraid. Why were you afraid? Because you were better than us, Veltek admitted. Your technology was more advanced. Your society was more adaptable. Your people were more creative. We were ancient and set in our ways, and you made us feel obsolete. It was the most honest thing any alien leader had said since the Exodus began. I cannot speak for my government, Sung-jae said carefully, but I will pass your request along with my recommendation. Thank you. After Veltek left, Sung-jae walked to his private office and composed a message to Earth Command. He recommended limited humanitarian aid for the Velthari refugees, but nothing more. Forgiveness would take time. Trust would take even longer. Dr. Hewan worked in her new laboratory on Earth, developing technologies that would have seemed like magic to the old council species. Humanity's isolation had accelerated, their scientific progress dramatically. The new quantum drives are ready for testing, she reported to Admiral Giho. We can now travel between star systems in hours instead of days. Communication systems? Instantaneous across any distance. We're no longer limited by the speed of light. Defense technologies, far beyond anything the galaxy has seen. But more importantly, we've developed technologies for creation instead of destruction. Terraforming systems that work 10 times faster. Medical techniques that can cure diseases the aliens thought were impossible to treat. Manufacturing processes that can build entire cities in months. Giho nodded. And our policy regarding sharing these advances? Only with proven friends. Species that have demonstrated they can be trusted with advanced technology. The list of proven friends was short. The Yildar had earned their place through consistent loyalty. The Kethron were earning theirs through wisdom and self-improvement. A few other small species had shown promise. The great powers that had once dominated the galaxy were not on the list. 1 year after leaving the Council, humanity had not just survived, they had thrived. Their new colonies were more advanced than anything they had built during their Council membership. Their technology had progressed by centuries. Their military was beyond the reach of any galactic power. Most importantly, they had learned to value themselves properly. Ambassador Shungjai ended his day by reviewing applications from species wanting to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. There were dozens of them, from tiny nations that had formed from the wreckage of fallen empires to ancient species that had remained neutral during the crisis. Each application was carefully reviewed. Did this species treat humans as equals? Did they have something genuine to offer in friendship? Could they be trusted to maintain agreements without human enforcement? The standards were high and most applicants were rejected. As he looked out at the stars from his office window, Shungjai reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, humans had been junior members of a galactic community, grateful for acceptance and always trying to prove their worth. Now they were the standard that others aspired to reach. The galaxy had wanted humans to know their place. They had learned their place, at the top of galactic civilization, deciding who was worthy of their friendship and who still needed to prove themselves. It was not the place humans had originally wanted, but it was the place they had earned through 2 centuries of thankless service and sacrifice. The age of human desperation was over. The age of human leadership had begun.